Hey, everybody, welcome to this episode of Coffee with John. Looking forward to talking to CEO of Gym Launch, Brian Anderson. Brian, it's great to connect with you. Appreciate you taking time to be on the show. All right, so we're going to get into what you do at Gym Launch, but I want to talk about what it's like to be a CEO today. We're recording this Q3 2026. I think being the CEO of a company today is much different than even 2 years ago or 1 year ago. We have AI influences. We have consumer trends that are completely different, changing by the month. You have already in the gym world, a large percentage of people who join gyms and never go. And then you got to keep their attention to hopefully keep the recurring revenue. But and then you got to manage people of 3 to 5 generations all under one roof. Many want to be in the office. Some want to be hybrid. Some stay home because they have a sniffle. Some stay home because they have a fever.
Man. So
it's a different world. And so we have to lead differently. So I really want to kind of start there because I think it's a really important level of awareness that all CEOs need to be thinking of really on a daily basis today. So how do you see your role as CEO today? You've been the CEO of a lot of companies. We're going to not really get into too many of them. People can read your bio on your site. But how has being a CEO evolved in today's world?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. I don't alter what I do very much over time, right? I look at things at kind of a 50,000 foot level. My job is to increase earnings, right? That's what it is. That's what a CEO's job is. I've always said, for-profit companies exist for the benefit of their shareholders. So my job is to increase shareholder value, no matter what that is, right? And that was the case 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now. And however, what one has to do to get there has changed a ton, right? So no matter what, I'm trying to increase shareholder value. Sometimes that's a growth story like Gym Launch. Sometimes it's a turnaround that I've done at other companies. But no matter what, my job is to increase shareholder value. However, what it takes to get there and the model and how you deal with, generational things,
Right.
It's pretty wild. Like it really has changed a ton. Yeah. And also running companies remotely versus in an office is a very different thing. So I stay pretty nimble. Because I tend to step into companies every 3 or 4 years. I tend to get hired to run something and either grow it or turn it around, get it to a certain point and exit and move on. So I walk into situations and really learn what's going on. And I try to alter my style or my goals based on what I see and what I feel. But some of the tenets never change, right? You're trying to increase shareholder value. No matter what, I don't care what company, what business model, what generation, now, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it comes down to smart people. That has always been my thing, right? When I land at a company, the first thing I'm trying to do for the first, several weeks or month is assess the talent pool. Do we have the right strategy? Do we have the right vision? And after that, it is trying to really ascertain who are the A players that I want to make sure are locked and loaded and incentivized and ready to knock down walls to make this transition or grow this company or turn it around. And anyone who doesn't fit into that definition needs to, you need to think about it hard, right? That I've taken with me to every company.
So let's talk about what makes an A player today. I agree with you. I'm 54. How old are you?
55, 56 as of a couple of days ago.
Okay, so you're wiser than I am. You have a couple of years.
And John, I have more hair than you. How did that happen?
I'm not sure. But it's the only negative of Zoom and doing video. I have to look at my hair receding, through the years, through the day. But let's define what an A player is today. Sometimes when I'm talking to younger people, let's say in their 20s, this is going to sound like a generalization. It partially is, but not fully. I will say things to them like, be the first one in and the last one to leave. And they'll say to me something around either, 10, 20% will say 100%, but 80% will say, that's a good idea. I'll think about it. Our generation didn't think about that. Our generation did that. That's what made you an A player. It was delayed gratification. You paid your dues. You knew you had to. That was the game. Today, that A player, how do we find that A player? It's really, really hard to find. One of the things that when I'm talking to clients, whether I'm talking to a solopreneur or a Fortune 100 company, one thing I always say is you have to hire great, not 99% right, but 100% great.
Yep.
Because only 50% of great actually lasts longer than 2 to 3 years.
Right. Right.
And so what is your advice to either be an A player, evolve to an A player, or stay an A player in today's work world?
Yeah. Let me first address what you brought up a second ago, which is the recruiting and hiring side. Let's start there. That is incredibly important. Hiring the wrong person is expensive as hell. It costs time. It costs, poor performance. You're paying recruiting fee. I could not agree with you more. Be slow to hire and quick to fire.
Yeah.
Right? That is an old adage, but it is so true.
Yeah.
And one other thing is when recruiting and hiring that talent, some companies, especially larger companies, tend to take whatever layer the person's coming in at, the layer or two above that will interview them and make a decision. And I think that's a giant mistake. Of course, you need supervisors and, sort of more senior people to interview, but that person's would-be peers should interview them. And a couple of sharp people who report to that person should interview them. And it's, I guess you would call it like a 360 deal.
Totally.
But to me, that is incredibly important. And if you really value your team and your culture, then people should have a veto, right? Even somebody who's going to report to this person, if they've got some sort of red flag that they feel, I really believe strongly that people should have a veto, because when you make that hire, if you have complete 360 buy-in, then everyone on that team has their signature on it. They are incentivized and ready to get this person up to speed and make sure they are successful. So successful hiring to start with is really important.
Well, a couple of things on that. If your company has a receptionist and they veto it, 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10 times they're right.
Right.
They've got great instincts. They know everything that's going on in the office and they're picking up on things. I want to know yours, and I'll give you my best interview question that will increase probability. I sound like an infomercial, but it will increase probability. What's your best interview question?
Oh, it's a good question. John, I don't have preset questions. I just feel a person out. I just sort of go there and feel things out. So I don't have but I want to hear yours. I'm very.
So I don't either have preset question, but I have one preset question.
Okay.
And you ask it about 5 to 7 minutes into the interview, once they kind of get comfortable and let their guard down. And so, I got this question because I was in commercial real estate for 6 years as a broker, and then 6 years I ran my office, and it was a big recruiting company. We had to recruit a ton of people, like 20, 30 interviews a month for 6 years. And I hired some great people. I hired some wrong people. Just as you know, it's a process. And then I came up with this question, and it really helped me a lot. And when I give it to clients and they use it, it helps them a lot. That's the feedback I get. And this is my, 10 years of using the question and my 11 years as a business coach giving the question and getting positive feedback. Okay. I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, but here's the question in its simplicity.
Right.
I would say something like, hey, Brian, on a scale from 1 to 10, how badly, with 10 being the highest, do you want to work at Gym Launch? They will give you the honest number. And so you only want people who are a 10 or above. Sometimes with engineers, they'll answer an 8 or a 9 because they're very black and white.
Analytical and logical, rational. Yeah.
That's the kind of only exception, in my opinion.
Right.
But they will say to you, I don't know, like a 6. And then you'll say, wow, this person I thought would be great, but they're answering the question wrong. And once they answer it wrong, the interview's over.
Yep. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
This parlays well into your question to me a couple of minutes ago that I didn't answer, which is, what are those characteristics? How do you determine an A player?
Yeah.
And what your question gets to the bottom of desire. Like, how pumped up are you to be here? And that is one of the things that I'd put on that list. What makes an A player? I will never discount intelligence, just raw intelligence. I like working with smart people. So I start there. Is the person smart? How motivated are they? Are they pumped in that? That's what your question gets to, is desire, motivation. Like, are they fired up? Are they excited? Are they really pumped up to be here? Because if they're not, they may not stick around long, just not going to have the right thing. Well, intelligence, motivation, desire to be there, hardworking, is another aspect. Like you said, younger generations just have skirted by, or at least some people do. So you want somebody who's just ready to crank. And I believe I'm very much about quality of life for myself and for other people. So I like having a company, it's important to me for a company to have a culture that respects people's time off, respects space, respects, like I'm very loosey-goosey about that stuff, but it only comes with somebody who will knock down walls and is ready to do whatever's needed at the same time. So it's about a balance there. But the sort of the last thing I would put on that list is that pervades everything is cultural fit.
Yeah.
To me, it is incredibly important. And this is not true for all companies. There are a lot of companies that are kind of sharky and it works for them. I mean, the investment banking world is known to be that way. Right. I know a lot of people on Wall Street, and it's that way. Yeah. But that's not how I like to do things. I like to build a culture where people are kind, respectful, they like each other, they enjoy being in meetings and talking and whatever. So just playing nicely in the sandbox. And to me, that is very, very important. When you put a lens over a group and include cultural fit as part of the definition of an A player, it leads to people being let go who were cancerous to the organization, or at least leaned in that direction. That's one of the most effective things that I've done at companies in the past. Is it takes a little time, because it takes time to figure out who they are, but you want A players from a performance standpoint and equally value A players from a cultural standpoint. And if you put that together, it's sort of a multiplicative effect, because it lifts everyone up.
So let's talk about it, and then we'll move on to another topic. But when you talk about letting people go, I find in companies, people hold on to people too long. Now in major companies, there's, HR, and there's different types of standards and having to let somebody go. But in the everyday private, type of client that I find in my coaching world, people hold on to people too long. I'm all for finding the right seat, understanding if it's the person or the manager. Do we need to train the people, implement more training? But if we just discuss, for the sake of this discussion, that a toxic person, to your point that it's expensive to hire the wrong person, it's expensive to keep a toxic person. How do you, in your roles coming into companies, being CEOs, evolving them, getting them ready for exit, et cetera, how do you let someone go?
With honesty and with kindness.
Yeah.
Simple answer.
Yeah.
Right? If someone's not a fit culturally, tell them that. If someone's performance is not there, that should be obvious in KPIs and so forth, but tell them. Be honest about the reasons, but be kind about it. It's as simple, to me, it's as simple as that. It is not fun. Like, that's why people procrastinate and keep, non-A players longer than they should, because it's uncomfortable to let people go. It sucks, right? Yeah. Like, we've all had to do it, and it's not fun, but it is the right thing to do for the business. Yeah. And ultimately it's the right thing for that person as well. So I just say, with complete honesty and with kindness. And obviously there, HR stuff, and sometimes there are legal reasons to modify that, but I just believe honesty and kindness is a key. Yeah.
And I'll just add one footnote to that. Maybe not complete honesty, because you don't want to get sued after you fire someone.
Right.
Sometimes you do have to kind of temper what you say for legal purposes. Right. So I'm just giving a little footnote. Check with your attorney before you let someone go and say anything. And I'm not an attorney. I walked out of my LSATs. I was on my test, my prep test. But if you give somebody a severance, have a hold harmless, that they got to sign it so they don't sue you. All right, that's my my pseudo legal advice. Having no legal,
and it's smart. It is smart to do that. It's every company's different, environment's different. But you mentioned severance. That's part of the kindness part. Is
correct. Whatever
do your best as a company to take care of people and be good to them on the way out.
Correct. I agree.
Take the high road.
Yeah. That's what I always say to clients when they say about when we have that talk, it's, well, what's going to allow you to sleep at night? Because you are, you're disrupting things, but also doing them a favor. They'll find something that's the right fit for them. They really will. Yeah.
Right.
And we as owners and managers have a right to keep a safe environment. So, as far as away from toxic people. All right. Next subject. CEOs. You talked a lot about shareholders, doing what's right for the shareholder and growing the company and revenue growth. Expenses are also something that sometimes maybe people don't keep their eye on to the extent that they need to. So how do you watch your expense line? Especially today, things are more expensive. How do you do that without compromising the people, the hiring, and everything that we've been talking about?
I spend a company's money more carefully than I spend my own.
Yeah.
That's one way that I always look at it, right? If I'm going out to dinner or booking a flight or doing whatever, if it's my company's money, I spend it more carefully than if it were my own. I might book a different class of flight or go to a different type of restaurant. So I think it's always important to have modesty with that. But look, I do focus a lot on expenses. You have to, because my goal is to increase shareholder value, which means increased earnings, and earnings are simply sales minus expenses, right? So managing expenses is just as important, but also depends a lot where a company is. Like if you're in high growth mode, you want to make sure you are fueling that fire and spending money on the smart things to get that growth. So you don't want to be too sharp or miserly about expenses in a high growth situation. But in a stagnant growth situation or a declining situation, you gotta sometimes pull the axe out.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So now let's talk about if somebody were to go to gymlaunch.com, which you're the CEO of, on the homepage, we'll say trusted by over 6,000 gym owners all over the world. The gym model is an incredible model to me. It's an incredible model because you have people who have the right intention when they join. The stats, but the stats that I kind of see sometimes are, whether it's 6% or 8% of Planet Fitness members actually come, or I've also read studies, and again, I don't know if this is right or wrong, up to 20% of people actually show up consistently, but many don't. What a great recurring revenue model, right? Where you're tapping into somebody's inspiration and hope that they will actually get back into a habit trend where they're actually showing up. Yeah. And so that, to me, that requires a lot of things, and keeping the business top of mind for the people to keep coming and keep coming back, and for the members to not only show up, but to keep showing up, because their members walk out the door every day and you hope that they walk back in.
Right.
And so talk a little bit about what Gym Launch does. Does it launch from scratch? Does it relaunch companies that need a reboot? Like, who's your ideal client?
Yeah, I love diving into this. And by the way, I will start by saying I've never owned a gym and I've never run a gym company, right? A lot of my colleagues have run Gold's Gym or large chains.
That's a benefit, I think, because you come in with fresh ideas. You come in, it's good to be, there is a level of being naive to things and that allow no ceiling of creativity and ideas.
That I think you hit on something pretty important here. And honestly, the private equity group that brought me in to kind of help this company is, I think they looked at it that way as well, which is a different lens, bring experiences from other cross-pollinating CEO experience across industries and across verticals often has really, really good, really good results. And I think that plays here as well. So I've never run a gym, never owned a gym, never run a gym chain. However, I have to say I've gained so much respect for what Gym Launch does, and also people who own gyms.
Yeah,
because there are so many great stories, and I've met awesome people in the last year being at Gym Launch. But Gym Launch is a business coaching business. So people who own gyms, let's think of Gym Launch's ICP is gym owners who maybe own 1, 2, 3 locations of a gym. And we have large chains, we have franchisors, et cetera. But our wheelhouse, our sort of center of the bullseye is independently owned gyms where an individual or maybe a couple owns 1 or 2 or 3 locations of a gym, or maybe up to 5. And they are real entrepreneurs. What I love about this is that most people who opened a gym did it because they were passionate about the activity. They loved to weight lift. They were into martial arts, whatever the activity is, Pilates, yoga, and they got into business for that reason. Some of them happen to be good business people and they do a great job building and running their business, but many of them aren't. And many of them were passionate about fitness, but didn't really know how to run a business. That's where Gym Launch comes in. Yeah. Gym Launch was founded 10 years ago by Alex Hormozy, who, has gone on to really awesome things since then, but he is a business coach at the end of the day. And that's, and even in his current model, acquisition.com, that's what he does. He's a business coach. So Gym Launch was founded to coach those who are coaches of others, right? Think about it. Gym owners are coaching, doing personal training, nutrition counseling, et cetera, for people who want to lose weight, people want to build muscle, people want to become more fit and have it improve their lifestyles. So gym owners are born coaches. That's what their model is, but they themselves often don't have a coach or a business coach. And that's where Gym Launch comes in. So we have an in-house digital marketing agency. So we run ads for our gyms. We will help with lead nurture. We help with pricing and sales, operational efficiencies, all kinds of things. But when someone signs up with Gym Launch, when a gym owner signs up with us and pays us money every week or every month to help their business, they are assigned a coach, a Gym Launch coach. And I've gotten close to the Gym Launch coaches over the last few months, and I have to say, they are awesome. All of them are experienced gym owners. They were former gym owners who learned the lessons, made the mistakes, and built successful gyms, often with the help of Gym Launch. Most of them were Gym Launch clients. Yeah. And then often built them up, sold them, grew them to multiple locations, and then came to Gym Launch and said, I want to help others like this. I want to be a coach. So I've really grown to love this model and love what we do. I'll jump to results. We have a history of helping about 7,000 gyms over the last 10 years. And I cannot tell you, John, how many beautiful, awesome stories have come out of this. Gym owners who come to us, some of them are on the ropes and they're like, wow, I'm only doing $10,000 a month of revenues or $8,000 a month of revenues. I'm really struggling to make payroll and make things happen. And they often come into our ecosystem and we help them build that from 10,000 to 30,000 in revenues or 10,000 to 50,000 in monthly revenues. We also have a lot of customers who come to us or a lot of gym owners who come to us when they're already pretty healthy, right? They're doing $30,000 or $40,000 a month in revenue, but they would love to get to 80 a month or 100 a month. And we've helped a lot of gyms like that. But the stories that I love so much, our job is to help gym owners grow and make more money. So financially, it's very financially focused. However, the change in quality of lives is the most beautiful part of it to me. There are people who come to us and say, I can't get away from my gym. I'm working 12, 14-hour days. I'm training people. I'm, barely making ends meet. I'm not taking anything home. And then after working with Gym Launch for 6 months or a year, they are taking vacations. They have somebody to run their gym when they're gone. They now have enough take-home income to have a good quality of life. So it truly does change lives. So we change the lives of gym owners because those gym owners are changing the lives of their members who come in who want to be more fit and healthier.
Yeah. So a couple of things. One, I think that's great. And everybody needs a guide that has been in front of them that can prevent them from making a mistake. I'm a big believer, as we've talked a little bit about, I'm a business coach. And one of the things I find is that there's no bad decisions, just bad assumptions. And if you make one bad assumption, no matter, even if it's small, it can lead you down a road that could be 1 year and a lot of money, where if you just had somebody to say, hey, that assumption is 1% off, move it here. Mm-hmm. It changes your whole business, your whole perspective. Alex for many still, and for many, many years when I started this business, was a mentor from afar. I've read all of his stuff. I've watched so many of his videos, so many of his podcasts. And then Leslie started kind of coming into the mix a little bit and doing her stuff. So both of them, they share so much content, so much content. If you had to take the foundation of what they built, right, talking about kind of fundamentals and how things have changed, what's one thing that they started 10 years ago that hasn't changed in the business?
That has not changed?
Correct. For the positive, for the positive.
For the positive. It goes back to what I just said a little while ago. Like there are people get into this business of owning gyms and building gyms who don't have business experience.
Yeah.
Recognizing that and embracing that to help them, that has not changed. That is fundamentally what Gym Launch is all about. And it hasn't changed. How we get there is very different.
Yeah.
Acquiring customers through video ads on Meta has changed dramatically. The algorithms have changed. How social media plays into this has changed a ton. Content strategies have changed from have gone through cycles of more formal commercial style to just informal in your gym, on a selfie. Loads of things have changed in the business, but the fundamentals haven't, right? You've still got clients who often need want or desire or need hand-holding and coaching and to help them make decisions in the business.
Yeah. I find, Brian, that to your point about hand-holding, everybody needs to know kind of what to do next and what to do right now and what to do next. It really breaks down that simply. All right. So we talked, we went back 10 years a little bit when the business was founded. We've talked a lot about fundamentals, things that have changed, that have not changed. I want to talk about fundamentals for a minute. You're 56 years old. Take me back 45 to 50 years. So a mentor that gave you fundamental advice that you're still using today.
Oh, that's a good one. It's funny. You said 40 or 50 years, so you're going back to childhood and early teenager years.
Yeah.
My brain jumped to sort of first job out of college, and I got some very, very good advice from a mentor in a different industry, a mentor who was on Wall Street. I went to the Wharton Business School. Most of my colleagues went off to Wall Street and were headed in that direction. But I had a mentor who said, who helped me understand, I'll put it that way, that there are often many paths to the same result.
Yeah.
And style and culture have a lot to do with that. That's how it plays out for me a lot. There are people who are sharky and tough in business who are incredibly successful. And there are people who are softer and kinder and very successful in business. And there are a lot of styles in between. That's something I hold on to. That was a very early lesson in my career, is that there's having a goal, having KPIs, driving toward shareholder value if you're a CEO, or, sales growth if you're a sales manager, or whatever that is. Goals are the obvious thing, but I try to be very open-minded to always understand that there are different ways to achieve the same result. And people with different styles. Think of this in parenting. I don't know if you have kids, but I have
a 20 and 23-year-old. Yeah.
There you go. Congratulations. Me too. I've got 3 daughters. And I think of this a lot, right? Those of us who have more than one child know that they are sort of like pre-imprinted when they pop out. Your child number 1 ends up being very different than child number 2 or child number 3. You're like, how did this happen, right? We raised them the same way, same genetics, but they are different from day one. And people have different philosophies on it, just like they do in running companies. But my philosophy is that I vary my parenting style to sort of match the child, right? To match that person's personality, that person's style. And I very much view running companies the same way, and leading people, is that different styles, different techniques and tactics and ways of being can be equally as effective at getting to the result. So it is a good leader's job to set clear goals, clear guidelines, and then support his or her people to get there. And I think the big lesson I learned is there are a lot of different ways to accomplish that. I've changed a lot in my career. Earlier days, 20, 30 years ago, I was pretty rigid. I wasn't unkind to people, but I was pretty rigid. I was analytical, logical. I sort of thought my way was right. And I've evolved a lot. I've opened up and softened that a bit.
A book that really helped me do that 25 plus years ago. When I graduated college, I started an internet company when I was 23 with my brother and a buddy, and we sold it, and it was great. It was a great experience. But in that time, I was growing and leading a company the way I thought I should. And then I read this book, Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav. And the book, it talked about, I'll summarize this piece of it that had a really big impact. It said the ideal human, I may be getting some of this wrong, but this is pretty much the gist. The ideal human is when the personality ends and the soul begins and nobody can tell. And I thought,
please repeat that again, John. I'd love to hear that.
The ideal human is when the personality ends and the soul begins and nobody can tell. So and I remember thinking, I'm out of alignment. Because I was much harsher in my 20s just because I was, you're figuring it out. But since then, I've always leaned to kind and direct. You can be direct and kind without being an asshole.
Yep.
And so I think that's always worked for me. That's always worked for me.
Hey, think about it. You learned that lesson about yourself because it's a very personal thing. It worked for you. You learned it early in your career.
Yeah.
Great. You made a shift early.
Yeah. I want to talk about school for a second. It seems to me that people are graduating colleges and multiple, you can fill in the blank of the type of school without kind of the skill sets that they need to make it in the world. It seems to me that people don't know how to interview. They don't know how to ask questions. They don't know how to listen to the level that they need to compete in the world today against AI and to separate themselves. I have not found any school or university that is teaching what I think is like a full curriculum to get somebody ready for the world. And so if you had to go back to Wharton, no knock to Wharton, it's incredible. Congratulations for, that accomplishment. But since you went there, what class would you teach today?
Public speaking.
Yeah.
It's communication. Look, those who are in a high caliber MBA program are generally articulate, well educated. They wouldn't get there otherwise, right? But I'll actually answer that not from my Wharton experience, but from a different experience. So, and let me just broaden it. Not public speaking. Being able to communicate clearly without being verbose, right? Get to the point and be clear with as few words as possible, both verbally and in writing, is an incredibly important thing. And it sounds like too simple, but I'll give you a quick little story. Undergrad, my major was chemical engineering, like a million years ago, and I chose it for the wrong reasons, right? I was good at chemistry. I was good at math. I knew the starting salary would be good. I knew job availability would be good. So I chose something that wasn't a good fit for me. I just did not like it. Yeah. However, many years later, I went to Virginia Tech undergrad, and Virginia Tech hired a new dean of the School of Engineering. And she did kind of a road show and kind of went around the U.S. and met with alumni. So I got invited to a dinner in New York City of esteemed alumni or whatever. And so it's funny. She went around the room at this dinner and asked how people's experiences were. And, how was it when you were at Virginia Tech Engineering School all those years ago? And I don't know, maybe there were 8 or 10 people in front of me, and they all gave wonderful, glowing answers. Oh, it was great. It did this for me. It did that for me. And it came to me, and I can only be honest. Like I have no other filter. And I said, I regret my experience. I regret majoring in this major. And they were stunned. And then she asked me the question. She was very open about it. She's like, what didn't you like? Like, why wasn't it good? And my answer was easy. Undergrad engineering, at least back then, was so incredibly narrow. Like, you could walk out after 4 years and learn to design a factory or whatever your major was. But those people were terrible writers. They weren't good communicators. They couldn't public speak, right? Like my classmates. And I wasn't great at it either. And I feel like I got robbed of a broader education, right? Broad meaning humanities, appreciate, like, get a broad liberal arts education. But communication is the number one thing. You're not going to learn it well in school. Don't rely on school for it, but become a clear communicator. Writing and verbally, as few words as possible, get to the point.
So I love everything you just said. I'm in full agreement. A quick side note, the book Smart Brevity is, I don't know if you've read it, but it's a book. When I recommend, I think I'm responsible for thousands of copies sold. Every time I recommend it to somebody, they end up buying it for, not every time, but a lot of people are buying it for their entire company. Awesome. The book is brilliant. It's by the guys from Axios, formerly Politico, but it's all about exactly what you're saying, being tight in the way that you deliver. If I were to teach a class today, it would be exactly that. I would tell people, you can use Claude, you can use chat, you can use anything you want. Do a book report on, whomever, Ben Franklin. I don't know why it pops in my head right now, but you got to do a 20-minute interactive experiential discussion and make sure that every single person has a voice in the room when you're presenting. And something of that nature, because that's the skill set they need.
It really is.
Yeah, that's the skill set they need. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, business schools figured this out a long time ago, right? That's why for 20 plus, I mean, I got my MBA, I went to Wharton more than 20 years ago, but when business school is very team focused, team presentations, collaboration, they've got it. Law school, I'm sure, is very similar, but there are a lot of undergrad programs that aren't about it. I think what you're talking about it'd be valuable to everyone.
Correct. Well, and what seems to be is in the top 5 to 10% of schools, and sometimes at the top 5 to 10%, like at certain schools that have business schools, it's the top 5 to 10% that get into the clubs and the workshops and get invited to the table to certain things. But the masses aren't exposed, to me, what I'm seeing, aren't exposed to it yet where they need to be.
I agree, John. Yeah. There's something else that I add to this topic, which is, for young people, someone who's in college or who's choosing college or in college, you cannot rely on what you learn there to prep you. Just know that going in, right? You can go through college and get excellent grades and not be prepared for the world. Yeah. You can't rely on that. Don't have that as a fallback. Say, this is the foundation, but take it upon yourself to get internships, to get in the business world, to meet people, to network, to do all of those things. And internships are fantastic. They're not just about learning what you like to do, but it's often learning what you don't like to do or what you're not a good fit for. So on the topic of education, that's my main message to people, is don't rely on what you're being taught. Take the initiative to go deeper and learn more.
Yeah. When I was 18 years old, my dad gave me a great gift, accidentally. Maybe not completely accidental, but he said to me, Jonathan, you're about to go to college. I want you to listen to these tapes by Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Success. I think you'll learn more from these types of people than you will college. If you get less than a C, I'm pulling you out of college and not paying for it. But I put it on my ears. I knew at that moment I wanted to grow, and I wanted to start my own businesses, business coach, and write books and all of that stuff. And all through college, all I did was listen every single day to those people. So when I graduated, and I'm not saying this to impress at all, a double major in economics and journalism, and walked away with zero knowledge. I couldn't tell you one thing I really learned on, well, maybe economics a little bit. But but it was what I learned from listening to the tape sets as I walked to and from class every single day.
Wow.
And today it's never been easier, to listen to podcasts, to read a book, to read it on your Kindle, and it's affordable. You can get it for free from your library. You can, get it on a free app. So I just want to echo what you're saying is taking ownership of your own continuing ed is absolutely critical. One of the things I've been talking to clients about is whether it's once or twice a month, go to a coffee shop for 30 to 60 minutes, sit down and learn AI. Because if you aren't learning it fundamentally, your competition is going to work 4 years in 1 year to your 1 year. It's so important. All right, so
left behind.
So let's talk about you a little bit more. You're the CEO of Gym Launch. We talked a little bit about your philosophy. We talked about culture. We talked a lot about that. We're recording this Q3 2026. Some AI specialists have come out and said, the next 3 months is going to look different than the last 10 years. I don't think anybody can do more than a 3-year plan today because who knows what the world is gonna look like. So 2 questions. 1, how far out do you plan and forecast? And 2, what role does AI have in your world?
The planning cycle is insanely shorter.
Yeah,
John, like 3 year out, 5 year out, look, you can put numbers on paper, but everything's going to change at a much more rapid pace. And by the way, we've always been able to say that. It's just that the pace of change is intensifying and becoming more and more rapid, and AI is, making that a leap change. So yeah, planning, look, it needs to be week to week, month to month, a year out, but putting some 3 to 5 year plan in place is kind of Bain McKenzie, old school these days. But AI is, we use it a lot at Gym Launch. I find that companies, smart companies that are progressive, can use AI to become more efficient across the whole business, and it varies by function a lot. Some functions are still more, communication based, people based, like sales as an example. And some can be made a lot more efficient. So what we've been doing at Gym Launch is department by department, really researching and figuring out how AI can make us more efficient. Sometimes it's reducing payroll, sometimes it's speeding things up, but that varies a lot. It's different in accounting and finance than it is in customer service, than it is in the product world, than it is in sales or marketing. But function by function, make sure that you are trying to use technology to gain efficiencies, and AI has made incredible leaps. But is there also a way to utilize AI for the whole model? And Gym Launch is doing that right now. In August, we will launch an AI agent, and agent sounds boring because everyone's doing it.
Right.
But what Gym Launch has is something pretty unique. We have helped 7,000 gyms over the last 10 years to grow and make money. And there's not one way to do that. They're spread out across 25 countries and multiple currencies, different types of gyms. Some are health clubs, some are gyms, some are boutiques, some are studios. But we have built a model where we've taken that intelligence over a lot of time and used it to train the model, and now have an agent that can help answer questions that gym owners have, right? I mean, it's incredibly valuable. So AI, any AI agent is pulling information that's publicly available, and we have a lot of publicly available information. The books that Alex Hormozy has written, other things that we put out. But the secret sauce here is the private calls and private conversations and all of the proprietary data that we have over time. And we've trained a model with that and are in beta testing right now, and it's going incredibly well. So the way I look at that is that in general, Gym Launch's history is a pretty white glove service in a way, right? When a gym signs up with us and pays us money to take care of them, they get a high level of service, a high touch, white glove service. They have a coach, they have an agency account manager signed, et cetera. And that will always be a critical part of our business. But the ability to in a way more scalable way at a lower price, have a lot of our stuff available through a proprietarily trained AI agent is something we're about to launch. I'm really excited about it. Beta testing has been awesome. It's really cool.
I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
Last question before we do a quick speed round. You know, 7,000 gyms. If you had to extract one common characteristic of those owners that allows them to be successful faster, what is the number one characteristic of them?
Sales. Sales.
They're good at sales.
No, that they need to be better at sales. To me, it's the number one weakness across the platform, right? Many people in the gym business focus on leads coming in the door, right? You've got, it's all about marketing and running ads, and whether I'm Google or, Meta or whatever, like get me leads in the door. And we do that, but you've got to nurture those leads. Then sales kicks in, right? You have to, as a gym owner, like in every other business, nurture those leads, really treat them carefully.
Yeah.
And then being able to utilize sales skill and experience to sell that client is something that a lot of people need help with, and a lot of gym owners included, right? You've got a person coming in who wants to lose weight, who wants to gain muscle, who wants to improve their quality of life in some way. How do you parlay that into making as much money as possible and being successful with that client? So it's a sales side of it. And pricing models are very interesting. We help gym owners make a lot more money than they've ever made in some cases. And a lot of it has to do with how we encourage them to price their services and also to collect cash up front. A lot of consumers are willing to pay for that result in advance. And that allows a business owner to stack cash, and then which allows you to grow from there. So I think sales is valuable in every vertical and every industry. And in the gym business, I think it's the number one way that we help gyms.
Yeah. I think also with AI out there, you have to grow that skill set. Your sales skills, how you're building relationship capital, how you ask for the business multiple times.
Right.
It's so important. The how you can influence, how you listen. All of those skill sets. If anybody here is listening and saying, "Oh God, I'm worried about AI," get better at your listening skills and your sales skills, because AI is great, but in a way, it's a current and laggard piece. Somebody who wants real curated custom is going to want a human being listening and figuring out what works for them. So I think what you're doing is great. It sounds amazing.
I appreciate that. And that also, what you just said is very true, but it also varies for low price purchases versus high price purchases.
Yeah.
Right. Like if a company is selling a product or a service that's $30, $40, $50, $100, that can often be done totally automated, right? You're selling on products on Amazon or on a website. So you're nurturing that consumer decision, but it's not a heavy lift because the customer's not spending that much money. But in high ticket sales, like a gym launch, gyms are paying us a couple $1,000s a month to help their business. That requires much more of a personal touch.
Absolutely.
So there's a very big difference there, and often it has to do with the price point of what your product or service is.
And from a coaching standpoint, I'll just kind of toss in there to echo what you're talking about. Over the last few years, there have been industries that typically have not thought about sales. That I am working with attorneys, wealth managers, insurance agents, right? Agents. Those industries have typically kind of come. They have high retention, and they don't have to really think about sales. Well, today there's more options. They need to think like salespeople, and everybody does. I think that's a through line for every industry is sales. One of my son's friends just called me, and he was talking about a role at a business, and I said, okay, well that's your role, but while you're doing that for the next year or two, you've got to study sales every single day, because at the end of the day, if you don't walk away a salesperson too, then you've wasted 2 years of what the world needs from you 2 years from today. So I agree. I think it's great. And anybody, who isn't amazing at sales needs to advance. One of the, I don't know if this is still true, but of the 4 checkout lanes at Home Depot, the one that sells the most warranties. Do you know which one sells the most warranties?
No, I'd love to know this answer.
Self-checkout.
Self-checkout?
I'm not afraid to ask.
Prompt. Right. That's funny.
Right. All right, let's do a quick speed round, Brian. A book that's made a big impact on you.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Great book. When I launched my book that I wrote 7 years ago or so, I met him. He was at his booth, and it was kind of at the end of the conference, and he was just standing there. I was like, "Hey, I'm a huge fan. I love your stuff." And and he talked to me for like a half an hour. He great book.
That's fun. I'll give a second one. I know it's speed round, but that's a business answer, right? Yeah. And personal finance and so forth. But I read a book recently that's an older book that had an impact on me personally. Yeah, really unrelated to business. Many Lives, Many Masters.
Oh, Brian Weiss.
Really fascinating. Oh, really? There you go.
I have it right here. I can't find it right off the top. Oh, here, right here.
Yeah.
What
did you like about the book? I read this book when I was 20 years old.
It just blew my mind and opened my perspective on everything. Really, really wild.
I have some book recommendations for you if you liked this book. Okay. This book, same. This book was a life-changing book for me when I read it.
Yep.
A life-changing book. I just tell people what it's about so they can kind of get a vibe.
So the quick and dirty is that the book is written by a once famous psychiatrist who had a patient
who's referred to as Catherine in the book. Yeah.
Yep. And he would hypnotize that patient, and then he learned through his experiences with that patient that her soul, who was in the current body, had lived 87 prior lives. And she wasn't even aware of it, but under hypnosis, he was able to pull out stories and visions. But the whole premise is that Brian Weiss went from this analytical, logical, medical doctor, very scientifically driven guy, to someone who, believed through his experience with this patient that souls, are in a body, and then, and then they graduate in a way to another body. And
what I found fascinating about it also was that she came with all of these fears and ailments, etc. And as he would go back to the past lives, he would heal the past life, and she would be healed in her current life.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The book is amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah. If you could have coffee with anybody, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Bob Marley.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to give a business answer. I mean, I could give Warren Buffett.
There's no rules, Brian. There's no rules.
Let's talk about a guy who was like born with nothing of nothing and lived his whole life with passion. Like everything he created, everything he did was passion driven, and created an entire sound and genre of music that didn't exist before. Love to hang out with Bob Marley.
Yeah, it's great. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Just be kind. Treat others as you would want to be treated.
Finish this. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
That's it. Just if the whole world thought that way, and also give grace, right? When someone pisses you off or whatever happens, right? And it happens all the time. You never know what they're going through that day, right? Maybe they're not a bad person. Maybe they just are having a rough day. So give grace and be kind.
Yeah. Last question. Finish this sentence. Anybody thinking about starting a gym and or stuck, they should
come talk to Gym Launch.
Okay. How do they get it?
I don't mean to plug the company, but we're damn good at it.
It was a sentence for you to plug your own company.
I appreciate that.
Tell everybody where they can connect with you, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, website's gymlaunch.com. The social handlers are all Gym Launch. And, there's, like I said, I was hired to come in and sort of help a company by the private equity group who owns it, but I have grown to be very passionate about what we do. I've met so many gym owners that have been working with Gym Launch for years, and we have changed their lives. We have helped them grow their businesses, become more financially successful. They spend more time with their families. Many of them have grown and exited. So I love it. Yep.
It's great.
Please come talk to us if you own a gym and you want some help.
I can't thank you enough. This was great. I appreciate all your insights and your wisdom. If I extract just one quick thing, it's because I feel like I'm cut from the same cloth. Be kind, move from your heart, move with intention. That doesn't mean that you're a pushover. That doesn't mean you can't be direct. That doesn't mean you don't create a structure and a framework of high accountability. It just means that you can do it in a way where people can actually show up, reach their highest potential, feel like they're participating, and that they're part of the process to fulfill the vision of the business. And I think everything that you described showcases that. So I'm really grateful for your time and the energy that you brought to this interview and what you bring to your company. To all the listeners, check out gymlaunch.com. If you never wanted to start a gym, or you're starting a gym, or someone who is stuck at a gym, I think it's a really, like any business, a challenging business if you don't have somebody guiding you to what the right move is. You talked about pricing. Sometimes the difference between 95 and 97 or 1 month free. Like, if somebody knows the formula, it's worth the investment. I think a lot of times people, when it comes to coaches, they see it as an expense, when really it's an investment in your future, and it ultimately makes you more money, saves you more money, less headaches, and more fulfillment and more enjoyment. So congrats to your success, continued success. We'll have you on again, talk about some of the other exciting things that you're doing, but this was great today. Brian Anderson, gymlaunch.com. You can reach me at johndwoskin.com. Brian, thanks. This was great.
Awesome time, John. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And everybody.